So I grew up next door to my grandfather, who was a large animal veterinarian. And when I was growing up, his service area included the zoo. It was pretty cool, actually. I mean, nothing too crazy. We had a zebra one time and a wildebeest, but I mean, whatever else they may be, it's a horse and a cow. I mean, come on. So I'm about 8, my brother's about 10. My grandfather shows up with this huge cat, and it was actually a kitten. It was a cheetah kitten. It had a broken leg, which, you know, whatever else it may be, it's a cat. And cats' broken bones heal up pretty good as long as both ends of the bone are, you know, in the same zip code. It was adorable. Oh my gosh. My little sister named him Mr. Porcuddles. Probably not the most appropriate name for that animal. My grandfather called him that murderous beast. My brother called him 25 cents a pet. My brother was an entrepreneur. Not a learned behavior. He was born that way. He had this vision of the kids in the neighborhood lining up to pay him to pet a cheetah. My grandfather saw this and he put the kibosh on it and he said, "Do not let me catch you messing with that murderous beast." And my brother heard, "Do not let me catch you." And so every time my grandfather would leave, the Kit Kat Club was open. He hired me to work the door for what turned out to be a really pitiful percentage. I couldn't do anything about it because I signed a contract. Born that way, he was 10 years old. He was importing illegally high alcohol content vanilla from Mexico and reselling it on the black market. That's true. Okay. So, I'm working the door. He's pressing the flesh and collecting the money. Mr. Porcuddles is growing and healing. The weeks are passing. And by the time they get the cast off the leg, he had this brilliant idea. Mr. Porcuddles could move around now. So what he was going to do was he was going to charge kids $1 to play with Mr. Porcuddles by rolling a ball of yarn. He was going to let him out of the cage. Well, my grandfather left and the first group of marks showed up. He took the ball of yarn, he rolled it, Mr. Porcuddles exploded out of the cage, right past the ball of yarn, took a left, passed me, out the door, and was gone. We had just released a large jungle cat on our neighborhood. Neither one of us wanted that talking to. He said, "Go get him." I said, "Me? Why should you signed a contract?" You know, you can't enforce a contract for an illegal act. Fat lot of good that did me in law school. Anyway, I'm chasing after Mr. Porcuddles, and by the way, you may or may not know this, cheetahs are fast. That's not a learned behavior. They're born that way. So I'm chasing him through the west field. Luckily, it has a fence. Not really a fence. It has like a one-strand electrified wire. Formidable for a cow, not so much for a cat. And, you know, he could go right under it. But he gets right up to the wire and he stops. And I thought, hooray! And I got in between him and the electric fence, and I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. He's a freaking cheetah. I don't care what the contract says. I ain't jumping on that. But I did see why he stopped. Our neighbors had these 3 huge mongrel dogs, and they're working their way under the fence because they see cat. And whatever else he might have been, he was a cat. Dogs are coming, he's out of there. His best bet was this limb that was hanging out over the electric fence. It was about 10 to 15 feet up. Couldn't do it in one leap. He needed something to jump on. Turned out to be me. He was about 2/3 my body weight at that time. And as his back legs pushed down on my head, they just followed the path of least resistance. And I was going to bounce hard, and I would have, except for my fall was broken by the electric fence. As the electricity shot through my body, I thought to myself, "That's it! I'll stun him with this electricity!" Well, I didn't really think that. But it was a good idea, because like the lightning shot out of the top of my head and right into his back legs, and it froze his muscles, and he careened sickeningly sideways and landed right in the middle of these 3 delighted mongrel dogs. He was a cheetah. He'd woken up to that fact. And he started to dismantle these dogs. All of a sudden, there was my grandpa in his hand with his canvas bag that he used for his more bitey, angry patients. He wades into these teeth and claws and blood. He grabs Mr. Porcuddles and he shoves him into the bag. Mr. Porcuddles was a cheetah. he started to effect his own exit, just shredding this bag. And my grandfather's dragging him back to the cage and had just enough time to throw him in and slam the door when Mr. Perkins exploded out of the shreds like a firework. And he looks at the two of us and he says, "Boys, 2 jobs." My job turned out to be inventorying 11 pieces that he spent the next 4 to 6 hours knitting into 3 mongrel dogs. My brother had to repatriate Mr. Perkins, get him back to his people. And as the zoo van pulled away, my grandfather rounded on the two of us and he said, "Boys, I'll just say this. Whatever you think something might be, always remember, it is what it is!"